Hey everybody, for today's Testimony Tuesday, I'm going to go ahead and link the second half of my husband and I's testimony interview from last Friday, and I'll see you on Friday. Welcome back to my channel. I'm just going to assume you were here last week and saw the last interview. Yes, we're wearing the same clothes because we filmed it in the same day, but I wanted to give y'all, didn't want to give you a whole long video at one time, so I decided to break it up.
Part two,
baby. So, and if you're new here, hit that like button, join the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. We really appreciate it. So let's get back to the interview. We were talking about my borderline personality disorder and you dealing with it for going on 22 years. Well, actually, the marriage is 22 years. We've been together almost 23 years. And we were talking about the realities of how life comes in and hits you, and how people with mental illness are experiencing a different life than people who have not experienced. Now, like you said before, everyone probably has some level of something going on. But, borderline personality disorder, unfortunately, we are one of the diagnoses that come with a really, really, really negative connotation. And I can't say that I'm going to say that there's no reasoning behind that, right? Like, I was awful. I was pretty awful to you. And I have said this before, and I have said this to you, that I know that, yes, I have a lot in my past that severely affected me in a negative way and affected the growth of my brain and how I focus, and my body being stuck in fight and flight mode, and all these things that can go along with PTSD and CPTSD and borderline and ADHD. But for you, I felt like, not that your life was perfect, not that your family is perfect, but coming into the situation.
Oh, careful, I talk about my family.
You didn't.
They didn't agree to this.
You just were so kind and gentle and patient, and I feel like a lot of the trauma that you have comes from being married to me and coming into the family. And you didn't have, you may have had some level of anxiety, but like, you didn't really have anxiety attacks and things like that until you were married to me. And I know that you don't hold that against me, but it sucks when I know that you love me and want what's best for me, but I didn't trust that always. And so there was a lot of times that I took my past out on you. And I'm so grateful that you hung in there and stayed with me through all of that. And I hate that I tainted you in any kind of way. But I know that we all grow through things. And so I just want to give you props for that. As in addition to the mental illness factor and the issues that the kids had too, we also, as you know, or you may not know if you're new here, experienced childhood cancer with one of our daughters. And most couples actually do not make it through something like that. They usually do get divorced. So we were already struggling with all of the mental disorders and brain differences that were in our home. And I really didn't have an example of a respectful, healthy marriage growing up. And so going through the cancer, I felt that even though our marriage had really kind of grown a lot, and we didn't fight a lot or anything like that at that time, because when your kid has cancer, it's all about the kid. It's all about schedules. You don't have your own life anymore. You live wherever the hospital tells you to, whenever they tell you to, because you need to get those chemos, you need to get that radiation. You're trying to save your child's life. So nothing else in the world matters anymore. But that, and that actually usually includes one another, because we just became her parents trying to get her through this situation. And so we weren't feeding into each other. We weren't trying to fill up each other's love tanks. We were speaking each other's love languages. Although you were, when I look back at it, you worked and then you came and sat by her bed like this all night long so that I could sleep. And to make sure that she was taken care of, to make sure that they were getting her chemo right, to make sure she needed a vomit or whatever, you were there. And looking back at it, that is completely your love language, because you, um, acts of service, that's you. You're like, I will do for my family. And you were doing that. And I did appreciate that. But we didn't really spend time together. I mean, like, we weren't going on dates. We weren't, like, it's not the time to be romantic when you're like trying to save your kid's life. So why do you think that, going through all of the mental illness, going through all of the trauma, and then adding cancer to that, um, why do you think our marriage survived?
Did it? Did it?
Dun dun dun. I think so.
I mean, let's be honest. Like you had said, there was a dynamic shift in attitudes and personalities, and I allowed a lot of stuff to just wear me down. As a result, that changed who I was. Then my attitude towards you had changed, towards the kids had changed. So there was this seesaw for a long time of just differing attitudes, and then at that point, it was with the diagnosis. That was like, have you ever seen those videos where somebody's accidentally walking on a treadmill that's already going? And sometimes you just,
Yeah.
and other times people can just hop on and keep doing it. And that's essentially what we did. We just got on here, we just kept going because we didn't really have a choice. I mean, it was what it was. It went from 8 o'clock in the morning, getting wisdom teeth extracted, to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, getting chemo treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, that there was no
Yeah.
downtime on that particular, so it was just like that, and we just learned along the way, and we had no choice but to do it. So once that all calmed down and we actually had a chance to breathe, it's like you're holding your breath that entire time, and you can't exhale until it's all over, because
Yeah.
you didn't know.
Right. Because even through all of that, we didn't know if she was going to live or die on the other side of that. So it wasn't like, oh, when we're done, we'll be done. We didn't know. Yeah.
So it was extreme. It was extreme. But how the marriage survived again, it I can only attribute it to God, because everything that, like I said, we had gone through, um, which was just the most extraordinary of circumstances. Like I said, the kind of things I wouldn't wish upon anybody. There's no way on paper that you would look at that and say that there's a chance in hell. I'm not going to do the Vince McMahon thing. So don't worry about that. There's a chance in hell that this marriage is going to survive. And the only way that I could say that happened is because God wanted it to. And I don't know why uh, he wanted it to. I don't know what he had in mind specifically. And I still question, what's the end game here? What's the goal? Because there are plenty of people that have got married with good intention, and they've gone through some stuff and just ended. And like you said, we've been there. We both had our own separations at different times, and wanted to, or we sometimes would have an argument about something and we wouldn't talk for days, so a week. I mean, we would be in the same house, and anybody that's ever been like that, where you're so uncomfortable to not talk to your partner and sleep in the same bed, it's difficult. So I can only attribute it to God keeping this broken mug together.
Yeah. And actually, a couple years later, after some more tragedies and loss, my borderline, like, really, like, came out fighting full blown. I think it's probably the worst borderline trip that I've had. It lasted a few years, and I would leave like the minute anything. I couldn't handle nothing. I was My anxiety was at 99% at all times. So any little thing that happened would set me off. he wasn't setting me off, but every time anything in life set me off, I would just drive away and just go away for days. Turn off my phone, wouldn't talk to anybody. It was not good. And at one point I did move out, and I was just lost. I was so lost. I was mad at God. I was mad at everybody. I just felt really alone and betrayed. And I just want to give you credit because you continued to pray for me. You that could have been your out. You would have been told, nobody would have blamed you. You could have been like, that's it. I tried. I did it. I'm so sick of this. This is my out. But instead, not only did you pray for me, you were pursuing me, you were dating me, and I know that for our marriage to be where it is now, I mean, we rarely argue. I can't even think of the last time that we had an argument. Like, we are just best friends who have so much fun, who enjoy each other so much. But like, like if someone is watching this and they're dating somebody with borderline personality disorder, or married to someone with borderline personality disorder, um, like what do you think would be your advice to them to know when it's time to leave, or if you should hang in there, or um, whether someone has gone like beyond, like this is not going to get better? Like, what do you think if someone came to you with that kind of advice, knowing what we've been through? What would you say?
Well, I mean, let's keep in mind during that period of time that you mentioned, I mean, I had checked out uh, myself, and so I was not uh, loving and honoring the way that I should have been, which also contributed to that. So, I have to own up and take my part in that. Um, but with that said, the thing that I ultimately have thought about, and it goes back to what I said last time, where it's like and I've heard these songs on the radio for years and years and years, but you don't know what you got until it's gone. And sometimes it's just too late. Sometimes the person is changed to the effect that they've just moved on. So it's really, I like using um, analogies like that because it rings true. There are just so many songs about breaking up, um, or break up to make up, whatever it may be that you listen to. And you have to ask yourself, okay, is there something that I can do with myself first and foremost to change who I am and how I interact and how I react that would be of any benefit to my partner and to this relationship that could salvage it. And I wasn't making any assumptions. I wasn't making any notion that this is going to change. I had accepted that essentially the marriage was over, um, and it would probably stay that way. This is not to say that people who haven't broken up or separated haven't been able to mend fences and come back together. But uh, I was trying to make my peace with that. I was trying to make my peace with it either way. But I also was thinking about it and saying, I have to get over myself. It's really the for better or for worse. And we all have our idiosyncrasies. We all have the things that irritate us, the things that annoy us, the things that grind our gears, um, about other people, about our
Mm-hmm.
spouses. And truthfully, rightfully so,
Right.
you know.
We're all humans. We're all going to have
Um,
things we do that irritate other people, or that other people don't like, rub them the wrong way, or whatever.
but are you willing to, one, overlook it, get past it to the point where it's not a hindrance to your relationship, it's not a hindrance to your personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
or not? And do you want to talk to well, I'll say it this way. If you're talking to your spouse in a very disrespectful or unloving way, think about how you are addressing that person and ask yourself, do you want to be addressed like that by somebody?
Right.
And the answer is no. You will go to a job and you expect to be treated with respect. And if your boss comes at you sideways, your initial reaction is, who did this you're talking to?
Right. Right.
It's,
Yeah.
you want to write a strongly worded email. And that's the issue that I'm going through even right now, where, electronic communication is much different than in-person communication. Electronic communication doesn't come off very nice.
Right.
And in a way that really makes you want to continue on in that professional relationship. So it's really a question for me of what do I got to do to change myself and really be down with the for worse. The for better is great, but like tradition says, can you stand the rain?
Right, exactly. Everybody's down for the better. That's why you got into it. It really is a matter of, can you handle someone at their worst?
What advice do I give for somebody?
Oh, yes.
Who's in that situation? And honestly, that's a tough call, because the person who has the mental issues that you're referring to, they have to be willing to do work on themselves. Yes. It's not just, this is who I am, just accept it. Just accept the crazy as is. Like, you knew what you bought when you got into this, so just accept it. This is like, okay, I'm somebody who has some really bad habits, and you knew what this was, and you just need to accept that. Yes, there is a to a degree of acceptance, but at the same time, it's also not fair to your partner to not do any work on yourself to better yourself and to better this relationship. And if the person is not willing to do that at all, and there's no acceptance of it, and not wanting to get any therapy or discuss medications or discuss other brain therapies, alternative measures, exactly, then this is a different conversation that needs to be had, because
then nothing's going to change, right? Because then there's not going to be any growth. There's not going to be any change. You're just stuck where you are. And if you're miserable, that's not going to get better. It's kind of like a kid that never gets corrected or disciplined, and then they're a spoiled brat. Nobody could stand them. And, the parents didn't do them any favors, right? Because now the world has to deal with them, and the world don't want to deal with that. And it's the same thing with borderline. The reality is that when our brains were supposed to be growing and maturing and learning how to deal with things that upset us, instead things happened, and we are like kids where we throw tantrums and we think it's okay to get physical or cuss people out or feel sorry for ourselves and stop talking to people like we're children. That is childish. That's just the reality. So we can grow and we can mature. It didn't happen naturally, but we can make decisions every single day that will help us grow and mature. And yes, we may have to work harder to get there. But if you're not willing to put in the work and you think people need to accept you how you are, you're selfish and you're immature and you're childish. I'm sorry. And that's not fair. That's not being loving. You don't care about the person you're with and want better for them. You don't even think they deserve the best version of you. You think they need to accept the worst version of you. And I know Marilyn Monroe was famous for that quote, right? If you couldn't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. But if you're not working to be your best, no one's ever going to see your best, because it's not going to come on its own. It's only going to come when you have an illness like this, if you work hard to heal and to get better.
And I will say this also, adding on to what I was saying earlier and to your question, when it comes to marriage. Now, there's a show called Married at First Sight that I think is crazy. I think it's absolutely insane.
It is crazy.
And I would never do it. But what is interesting about that show, and I've thought about this, is that you have these so-called experts putting people together, on paper that they seem like it would be a good fit. And they're asking the tough questions. And that's the thing about marriage is you fall in love with somebody and you want to spend the rest of your life with them and you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. You might know what that movie is. But it's a great feeling and all, but there's the reality of let's talk about taxes, let's talk about kids, let's talk about credit, like let's talk about the hard stuff. And these are the things that you're going to have to deal with. Like you see these television shows like, oh, we fell in love on the show and the island and whatever, whatever. And then you get off of that television show and you're back in reality. And it's like, oof, yeah, we've got some stuff that just is not congruent. And everything is all well and good when you're on vacation, when you're in the honeymoon phase of whatever relationship that you're in. But that passes. It always passes. It's always going to pass. And you're going to be dealt with the hard questions. So,
because that's infatuation, not love.
Exactly. And if you're not going to be bold enough, and I don't even necessarily say bold enough, we're saying this to people who are watching this who are not married. There are people who are not recognizing this as this is something to be bold enough. So I don't want to say that as a blanket statement. But if you recognize that your partner has mental issues that we're discussing, and this is something that you're choosing to ignore, and you decide to enter into a marriage, that's a grievous. I don't want to say a grievous error, but it's a bad omission because it's going to negatively impact your relationship when it doesn't have to.
Absolutely.
When you really need to address it before you say the I do's. And if it's not something that you feel you two can get over as a couple in that way, then do not continue on walking down the aisle because it's not going to pan out the way that you hope. But if you think that you can and you are willing to work and make the commitment, then you really need to work on yourself and make that commitment. And your partner needs to be as supportive as possible through that process. And that's one thing I wish that we had that conversation, really sat down and talked about all the hard stuff before saying the I do's, because we would have, I think it would have saved us a lot of the growing pains of the marriage.
Yeah, because we did have premarital counseling, but it was not deep.
No.
It wasn't deep at all. And I think that that's doing a disservice to the people that you're counseling.
Yeah, it was surface level stuff.
Yeah, no offense if you happen to watch this, because, I mean, he may watch this, but it just at the time, it was surface. So if you, and I know that you're probably not going to feel like you could even be honest about this, but 23 years in, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it all again? Or do you think you would have just been like, I'm good on my own?
Do it all over again the same way?
No, just marry me all over again.
No. What I'm saying is,
what else would have been different?
What I mean is, someone asked a question, would you do it over again? Is this do it over again with the knowledge that you have now? Or if you had amnesia and you were able to go back in time,
the knowledge that
would you do it exactly the way that you would do it? I've thought about that on occasion, and it's hard to imagine my life without you.
But
yeah, it's hard to imagine my life without you. So I would lean on the side of probably, but there are some other extenuating circumstances of things that have occurred that I really could do without.
Agreed.
That still negatively affects me to this day.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry for that.
Well, it's not it's not your fault. I'm talking about
Overall.
overall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about overall. Um, there's this, I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Like this past weekend, I was not present. You know what I mean? Not getting
Mm-hmm.
to all that, but I mean, it's just like, that's a
You still feel overwhelmed sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's funny, when you broke your foot, that was just like with the diagnosis. It was just all of a sudden I'm back on the treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
and everything, the entire house fell on me. Uh, that worked, like all this, everything had to be just running, keeping things going.
Mm-hmm.
And was that week was that was a tough week. It
Yeah.
was a tough week, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
It was an exceedingly tough week, and so it's just I've thought about that, and yeah, I wouldn't know what my life would be like right now if I wasn't here. If all those years ago I did end up walking away, would you be in the position that you are now? Would you have gone through all these steps and gone through these classes and taken these treatments if you had fallen with somebody else? Would you
Oh,
be
I
the
wouldn't have
person
married
that you are?
anybody else.
Well, no, not
I
married. I'm just saying,
would have
like,
been
you could
solo.
be in a relationship, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
would you,
No.
would you be the person that you are now with the knowledge that you have now if the journey that we took didn't happen? It's like that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm. See how we finish each other's sentences.
exactly.
And I know I wouldn't. So even though I do completely give glory and honor to God for who I am and how far I've come. I have so much further to go, but at least I'm making progress, right? But I also know that God has used you, and He has used you in ways to literally pick me up off the floor. I mean, we've had times in our marriage where, one of our children threatened to jump in front of a train. And um, when we tracked the GPS, the phone was at the tracks. And when we went there, I'm literally thinking that we're looking for a body because I didn't see her, and the phone still said it was in that area. And at the same time, one of my best friends was like, miscarriage. There was so much happening, and we ended up finding out that someone at the tracks talked her into leaving and getting off the tracks, and um, the trauma of all of that. I came in the house and I just collapsed. I just was like, I'm done. I couldn't even stand up. Um, and I remember you literally going and like getting me a Xanax and picking me up off the floor and bringing me over to sit with me. And there are times where I just don't know how I would have got through it without you. Not just because of my mental illness, but also because of, the struggles, like we said, of the brain differences of our children and things like that, where it was just too much for me. It was just too much for me. And whenever something is too much for me, you're there. No matter what you're going through, you're there. The same way you were there to just sit by her bed and then work during the day. I don't know when you slept that year. I really don't. But you really just sat there all night long after getting off work and made sure that we were both okay. And it's such a testament to who you are as a good man that made me want to be a better person for you. So yes, I wanted to be a better person because I wanted to be the mother that my kids deserved. And I needed to try to fix some of the damage that was done because I was a teenager with borderline trying to figure out how to raise kids. And I wanted to be a better wife for you because you had been there for me in such phenomenal ways. So yes, there were times where I got mad and left or whatever, but overall, I can't imagine being who I am without you. And for better or for worse, everything that we went through, because yes, we've gone through awful stuff, but I understand pain and suffering and mental illness and things on a level where now I feel like I could help people that I would not have been able to help before because I would have probably stood in judgment of them. And there was a time where I was in remission and I did stand in judgment of people who had mental illness and was like, you could just decide to get better. And that's not what I'm saying. It's not that easy. I know it's really, really hard. Every single day, I had to make a choice to try to do something to heal a little more. There were days where I decided not to, and I just laid in bed crying or drinking or smoking or just escaping. And you can have those days, but the reality is when those days turn into years, you actually are stunting your growth, and then you actually could go backwards. And there were times where I did that, and like I said last time, it was a couple years where I just do like a tantrum for like 2 years straight, or maybe almost three. But now I feel like God has shown me so much through that, and I appreciate you so much more. Like I can't imagine my life without you either. And so, would you have any closing remarks you'd like to say in regards to marriage and what the biggest?
Don't do it. Wait, no.
Like, what would your final advice be to anybody who's watching this video who's dealing with a loved one with mental illness? You think that they need to get therapy themselves? Do they need to have, advice? Do they need to, like, what would you say if someone asked advice?
Yeah, I would definitely say look into some mental services, some mental health services for yourself. That would be extremely beneficial to help you navigate whatever it is that you're going through.
Actually, I gave you a book at one point, Loving Someone with Borderline Personality Disorder. Did you feel that was helpful
Yes.
or alarming?
I mean, both. Both. It was definitely that. And okay, wish I'd known this, skitty 80 years ago. But no, I mean, honestly, my advice is definitely get mental help for yourself. Do the best you can and try to love on the person. The hard thing is once your heart starts changing, it's hard to flip it. Once you're kind of in a place where you're not really like you can love somebody, but you may not necessarily like them,
especially if they're hurting you.
And so that's a tough thing to reconcile when you are trying to be in the same household, make a life with each other. And that can go for your spouse, that can go for your kids, that can go for anybody really. It's a tough thing when you are going through stuff and you don't really have a resource or an outlet that's healthy. People have unhealthy ways of coping: drugs, alcohol, sex addiction.
He's none of that. This is my clean.
I've got my own issues, but what I'm basically saying is that there's a constructive way and a deconstructive way to try to work through whatever it is that you're going through, and really do the best you can to, if you've chosen to be in a committed relationship with somebody who's dealing with these mental issues, then you really need to understand yourself, what it is that this person is going through. Pick up a book like you had given me, or watch a video. Do the work, do the homework to see what it is that you can do to try to help them. And it's sad because there are people who ultimately, no matter what you do, who have done all this, who still might have a bad time, like a drug user or an alcohol user who will have a relapse. and they could have a bad day and have a relapse and they unfortunately check out, or somebody, and I mean that even in a mental capacity where, you know what, I'm low and I'm going to do something harmful. I'm going to self-harm, and that self-harm might end up with an unaliving of oneself. Um, so this is not to say that the things that we're saying is the cure-all, end-all, be-all.
Right.
It starts with God. Definitely be God-centered as best as possible. Be open to it, and then go on and do some further research, and just try to be understanding and try to be kind, even if you don't, even if you're in a place where your heart is turned hard a little bit and you're not really feeling that person anymore. Try to be understanding, and at least, at the very least, and I'll say this much now in closing. I forget her name, but she just passed. There was a video years ago, that she was being interviewed by somebody else and talking about spouses, and she was basically saying, "Lie to me. When you come home, lie to me." He doesn't say like, "What? I can't lie to you. You're my black queen. You're my wife. I can't." It's like, no. You go to work, you smile in that boss's face every day, and then you come home and I get the least of you. I get the worst of you.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't he like you? You grin at him all day.
Right.
And I'm saying,
and
do that with me.
Yeah.
I don't get that. Like, do that with me. Fake it with me. She's like, fake it with me. If you can fake it with them, fake it with me. So at least I feel like I'm being loved.
Oh.
And he was like, really thinking about it.
Yeah.
But okay, I can accept that. It's a hard concept for me to wrap my brain around. But when you really think about what she was saying, I was like, wow, that's really deep.
Yeah.
That's really deep. And this is not to say fake it till you make it. Period. But yeah, if you're not in a place where you are feeling loving and feeling supportive or respectful, take a minute to try to get there. But yeah, try to do what you would, because you wouldn't talk to your boss
any old
way.
Yeah, you can control that.
So don't talk to your spouse any old way. Just try to be loving, try to be respectful. And that's what God asked for. That's what we should do.
Ty! Let's see if she could take her outside real quick.
Well, it's time for me to take him out.
Okay, well, let me wrap up. So in closing, my closing advice would be that part of, especially when you have borderline, we have trust issues, we have rejection issues, we have self-worth issues, identity issues, right? Part of oh, can you please take her out to pee really quick? We're about to come right now. I'm just wrapping this video up.
I did take them both out to pee before, but
well, at least she's just scratching at the door to get out. Okay. You want out too, Poopy? So my closing advice would be, for us with borderline, it's very hard. We have trust issues. We have identity issues. We have rejection issues. We have self-worth issues. Most of us. I know that I struggle with all those things, not as much as I used to, but from time to time. And the biggest thing that changed us in our relationship is when I think especially when you continue to love me, even when I was like, I don't know if I could do this, and you just kept loving me, that I got to a point where I trusted that you wanted what was best for me. You wanted to love me. You wanted what was best for me. That was why you wanted to be with me. And if that's the case, then if you hurt my feelings, I could tell you, you hurt my feelings, or I feel like I'm not important, and you're not going to say, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You'll acknowledge how I feel, and you'll assure me that that's not the case. And I think a lot of people could be very defensive. Well, you hurt my feelings. Well, you shouldn't be so sensitive. That is never how you react to somebody telling you how they feel. Even if I am being sensitive, the fact that you know I'm sensitive and you didn't intend to hurt me makes me put that wall down. And I don't feel like I need to shoot you with these arrows anymore. And so I feel like you have also learned to trust me, that I love you and that I want to respect you and that I want what's best for you as well. And I want what's best for us together. And so it is important that you can trust the person that you're with. If you are giving your life, your heart, your soul to somebody, we shouldn't give your soul to somebody because that belongs to God. But if you're giving your whole self to somebody, and they're not somebody who you, at the end of the day, if you wrote it down on paper, does this person really have my best interest at heart? Do they really love me? Are they willing to do their best to be their best for me so I could do my best to be my best for them? Because I can't change him and he can't change me. We had to work on ourselves. So if you are in a marriage or in a relationship where you don't actually think that person has what's best for you, then you need to reevaluate why you're in that relationship. But if you honestly can say, yes, this person loves me and has my best interest at heart, then don't let your borderline tell you otherwise about this person, because most of the lies that come in from borderline are from our past and have to do with other people more so than the person that we're with at this time. Unless you're with someone who's been abusive, who's been a cheater, who's done all these things to hurt you so they can't be trusted. And then that goes back to, why are you in that relationship? Because you need to think more of yourself than that. If you don't think more of yourself than that, the person's with you may not think more of you either, because you're not standing up. Now, in our situation, I didn't think that much of myself, and he thought more of me. And that helped me to see that all the lies I'd been told that told me I wasn't worth anything from the outside world, he was telling me that I was, and I loved him. And so that meant something to me. And like I said, I know God used you in that way. So my final advice is just that if you could trust the person you're with, then you don't need to fight for your rights. You don't need to fight to be heard. They should want to hear you, and you should be able to have a mature adult conversation about what's going on instead of fighting like children, which can lead more and more distance, and then you end up losing and not even remembering why you were together in the first place. So that's my 2 cents, and I appreciate you giving us your time and giving us a look into your marriage. I know that you are really personal. You've been getting better over the years with opening up, but I do appreciate that. And I hope that everyone out there can learn and gain and grow from this experience that we had. That was really tough, but you don't have to go through the same thing. You could choose not to touch the hot plate. We're telling you it's hot. You don't need to touch it yet. And also, if you'd like to see us do another video in the future, let us know. Drop it in the comments. If you have any questions for us, let us know. And as always, try to be a better person today than you were yesterday, and a better person tomorrow than you were today. And I will see you next video. God bless you.